morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. Come on in the room. Good morning, Rhonda. Good morning, Dana. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Come on in the room. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Just getting myself situated here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please click, like, and share. Good morning, good morning. Getting a little late start this morning, but we are here, we are here, we are here. Good morning. Come on in the room, come on in the room. Come on in the room. Good morning, friends. Good morning, good morning. Hey, Dasha. Good morning, Sonia. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, Reverend Rhonda. Good morning, good morning. How are you? Good morning, good morning, good morning, Dr. Yolanda Davis. Good morning. I'm glad that you had some time for self-care. Good morning to Mia and to Antonia. Good morning to you, to T. Mark, to Tamika Brown Higgins. Good morning to Reverend Glency and Margareta, to Carmen. Greetings, Rev, to Jonetta and Dr. Fernita and Dr. Irie. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Listen to my good sibling, Dasha. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Erica, you made it. Shannon Hancock, Love Positivity, Brandeis, LaRonda, Paula Owens Parker, Rihanna, DeAndrea, Renee, Sherry Brown Jackson. Hey, Jazz Hands. Tanya Denise Anderson. Good morning, Montrez and Corrie. I want to make sure I said it right. Good morning. Good morning, Lisa and Karen. Good morning to all of you. Karen from Yonkers, New York. Reggie Keat. Good morning. Good morning. It is good to see each one of you here. Good morning. Listen, continue to go ahead and share. We are live right now on both YouTube and Facebook Live. I had to pull out the original Dusty, even it's been washed 1,000 times, it's still gonna have this Dusty Rose look robe, because I think my other one is in the wash. So here we are. Listen, did not we have a good time on last week with Candace Bimbo? I'm so excited for all that is happening to her. I posted, for those of you who saw, I posted, we won, because it is my experience, or I look at it as how Candace, put Black church girls on her back. Not the first one to do it before you all get started, but definitely the first one to do it who made it to the billboard of Times Square, or close to Times Square. And for that, we give Jesus the African Messiah and the African Holy Ghost praise. Come on, okay? I'm just excited. So I wanted to share, I hope these play, these two moments of Black girl, Black woman joy that I have been sitting with all week, because we just don't get enough of it, okay? So the first I'm going to show is a clip of someone who in my head is in my close family circle, and that is of Kavia Union James, the daughter of Gabrielle and Dwayne Wade. I said James, I mean Wade, I'm sorry. The daughter of Gabrielle and Dwayne Wade, Kavia Wade. And so of her expressing her Black joy. And the second is of Candace. So I hope that it plays. And this is my devotion. This is my setup for how we are entering this morning's conversation. Let's take a try. It.
Welcome to your collection.
Who's that? Oh my gosh, that is you! Oh my God! Oh, I didn't even have my phone ready.
It's okay.
And then there's Meg and Listen, if both of those don't just give you joy, what it feels like to see yourself, to even little Kavya, when she recognizes that that's her in the window, that's her, she says, ah, she jumps, to Candace, who is just super excited seeing herself. And in another clip, she screams, "Mama, we made it." And let me tell you something, that made it, while it was from her lived experience, it just, for me, just resonated so deeply with what we experience when we allow ourselves to lean into complete and total joy, what we experience when we release ourselves from the stories others have devised about us, what it means when we at Kavia's age don't have any disruptions, where we have not yet leaned into sort of this white racist presentation of Christianity with a redemptive requirement, really, that often only redeems our souls and leaves our bodies in the muck and the mire. And so it looks as if Kavya has this unadulterated, pure joy at seeing herself reflected back to her. And while that's not where I'm pausing today, I just wanted to lift it up for our hearing, for our consideration, as we go, to throughout the rest of the week, throughout the year. Like, should we be able to bottle up that kind of joy and to capture it and to hold it so deeply that when we need it, we are able to reach down into the reservoirs of our soul and call forth, right? Should we be able, and thank goodness for the internet, where we are able then to go directly, right, to these pages and to get a little joy when we need it. That is what I am getting when I am reading Red Lip Theology. This is our second week of engaging. Last week, we were joined by Candace Bimbo. She is not here with us today. For those of you who are here, who are looking for Candace, she's not here with us today. She's apparently she's in New York doing all the things she should be, Ashe, and celebrating herself. But that doesn't mean we are going to stop conversing about this wonderful text. I've even started writing down some of the isms, some of the points of wisdom that Mama Bimbo, her mom, has passed on to her, as something that I want to hold dear and absolutely pass on to my own. And so I know that there are some chapters. Each person has his or her chapter, his, her, or their chapter that just sings. Also, let me say this, there are funds, not a lot, but some funds, for those of you who desire to get this book but are not financially able. If you would inbox me, and so that we can set that up. Not a lot, so probably 2 at best, and if someone, or maybe 3, if somebody else wants to kick in, that'll be fine too. So if you've wanted this book and you've just not been in a position financially to get this book, or any of the other books that we have engaged, please just send me an inbox and I will respond to you as soon as I can. So the place that I want to start, also, shout out to Dasha again, because Dasha, a Facebook memory came up in 2016 and I just hadn't had time to clip it and make it nice so that I can present it. But in 2016, we introduced on Pink Robe Chronicles Falling Out of Grace, and I'm saying Dasha's name because it was hey Natasha, thank you. I see you working it in the chat. Thank you so much. I am saying Dasha's name because it was just so phenomenal. I knew it was an important text to her as well. But it's in this clip, I'm talking about centering Black women's text and these critical conversations that we're engaging and how we are centering so that we can move forward, because they are our divine texts. So I raised that because it reminded me, as some of us need to be reminded, that I am not new to this, that Pink Robe Chronicles is not new to this. This community is not new to this, that we have been engaging in this way for a very long time. And so I am just excited about it. So again, I invite you to click like and share. I'm going to start reading in the middle of chapter 2. I believe this is 2. It's the chapter Suing God for Back Child Support. Suing God for back child support. Because I'm starting in the middle of the chapter, let me just give you some background if for those of you who have not read this particular chapter, and offer you a trigger warning for those who may have very complex relationships with fathers, with parents, period, but absolutely with fathers. If you've not already read this chapter may be triggering as it relates to absent fathers. So just want to acknowledge that. In the beginning of this chapter, Candace is really speaking about her relationship, or her non-existent relationship with her father, and the disappointment and the heartbreak. Well, she begins with a very funny story about how she thought that Luther Vandross was her father because of how much her mom used to play his music. And so she sort of moves through meeting her father and the trauma caused by her father's departure, and moving towards the ways. Thank you, Natasha. Girl, thank you, Digi Deacon. I appreciate that. And so this, I'm starting in the center of that to give you context, is about her framing this conversation and question to God about absent fathers. But in so doing, Candace is talking to us also about the need to shift her language as it relates to God. Okay, so that's where we're entering in. As soon as I came of age, I had to come to terms with the fact that my father is trifling as hell. And praying he'd change felt counterintuitive. I believe God heard my prayers about everything else, but when we got to my dad, God must have fallen asleep and didn't hear those looking back. I think I wanted some kind of tangible sign that my father was suffering because he wasn't present in my life. There should have been nothing good happening for him. He didn't deserve goodness. That he was thriving in my eyes simply because he was breathing confirmed my suspicions. God and my father were conspiring against me. Even though preachers and singers would say God is a mother to the motherless, it was understood the creator of heaven and earth is male. Scripture backed it up. Male pronouns are used throughout the Bible. And if that didn't make it clear, Jesus refers to God as Father. I laugh about it now, and it is absolutely hilarious, but one of my homeboys argued me down that God is a man because Jesus said so. If you tell me your mother's name is Jessica, why would I call her Stephanie? Why would I do that, Candace? It was a terrible analogy, but in essence, he was saying because Jesus called God Father in the Bible, that makes God male. But when I asked why God is only described in a way aligning God with one particular aspect of creation, he told me I was being intentionally divisive. That's church code for, quote, you have a point, but I don't appreciate it, so I'm going to resort to a good old-fashioned gaslighting as a direct. End quote. When discussing the Trinity, some male theologians and pastors attempt to pacify women by saying the Holy Spirit is feminine. Some would argue it represents how the Trinity balances masculine and feminine energies to produce Jesus, but it still feels off. It's like saying, okay, y'all, the Holy Spirit is a woman. Y'all comfort and are present and do the nurturing stuff it does. Happy now? Even with this, what is to be wholly accepted is God came to earth with a penis, and that male form has been the object of worship for more than 2,000 years. Let me take a breath right there. Let me take a breath right there and let y'all catch up. And people think that's crass. But when you honestly sit with it, the Bible's continual reference to God using father and son, and he reinforces the idea that God is male. Even though I had come to terms with the patriarchal and sexist foundations of Western Christianity and how it functions in the Black church while still in undergrad, I didn't fully understand how wedded I remained to those notions until I got to Duke and professors required me to use inclusive language for God. I don't know, but I remember when I first started when I was at Candler. It wasn't a pushback from me. It just was so hard to break the habit of saying he. It was so hard to break. And I didn't know that as I was able to break that, then what I was breaking into, breaking that habit, right? But breaking into a new way to experience and a new way to understand, or at least frame God, was absolutely transformative. I didn't fully understand how wedded I remained to those notions until I got to Duke and professors required we use inclusive language for God, which meant abandoning gendered pronouns and using God and God's self. What I was doing on paper, I pushed myself to do in real life, thinking of God outside of a gendered male perspective. Thinking of God outside of a gender perspective made God less limited to me, and it made God less common. While God desires to be close to us and there was something about using the same pronouns for God I used for every other human let me slow down. I'm getting excited. Let me slow down. While God desires to be close to us and there was something about using the same pronouns for God that I used for every other man in my life that felt less holy to me. And therefore, ungendering God restored so much of God's majesty and wonder for me. My. Let me see what y'all saying. Yes. And therefore, ungendering God restored so much of God's majesty. Ungendering God. Ungendering God restored so much of God's majesty. Ooh, that thing is hitting me. Dasha, I'll go back and put the notes into, if Natasha isn't able to, because she's doing it from Facebook and I'm moving through Restream, so it's not going to show up on YouTube. I will make her a admin on this page if it's okay with her at a later date. But I'll get the notes to all the people who are on YouTube. I'll go back and put them up. I'm just stuck on the ungendering God. I gotta get my church fan, y'all. It's the ungendering God for me. Considering my spiritual path, inclusive language pushed me to create an ethic to honor the ways I was growing and shifting. Folks weren't having it though. I didn't even think many would notice, but once while teaching Bible study, I only used God and God's self during the lesson. Afterward, my pastor told me such a move wasn't the culture of the church, and I needed to understand that everything I was learning in seminary wasn't appropriate for the congregation. That's what they tell you when they're not ready to work. For many, to question God's maleness is to question the power of men. And when Black men have found an unlimited supply of power within the black church, what could possibly get them to give that up? It's not difficult to find women who support them and justify their positions either. To tell the truth, this was one of the areas where my mother and I fought constantly. I want to go back and read this. And when black men have found an unlimited supply of power within the black church, what could possibly get them to give that up? I believed in my mom's insistence. I believed her insistence on God's masculinity was what enabled her to make excuses for a man who abandoned her with a child. That she saw God in an absentee father more than she saw God in herself. She believed I went to Duke, read 2 books, and had lost my mind. And she told me I had one more time to say another disrespectful thing to her before she sent me to God, and I would be able to see the gender for myself. Ah, my goodness, my goodness. I eased up, excuse me, y'all. I eased up on the rhetoric because mama didn't play but stood firm in my heart and my thinking. I can no longer unsee the danger in assigning gender to God. Help us today. Get us free today. I could no longer unsee the danger in assigning gender to God. Beyond just saying God is a man, assigning the male gender to God potentially shapes how we, especially black Christians, see all men. It creates structures which assert only men are capable of leading. It sustains hierarchy, making all but cisgender heterosexual men bottom feeders. And because our communities feel the need to affirm straight black men and help them navigate racism at the expense of the rest of us, suggesting a shift toward an ungendered God barely stands a chance. Families, church, schools, in each sphere, you can find routine uplifting of good black men. Really just men who leaned a little more into respectability politics than their brethren because they could be off somewhere doing other things. The bar for black masculinity is so low that we celebrate black men simply because they're not robbing, raping, and wreaking economic and physical havoc. It doesn't matter if their good guy routine is a ruse enabling them to be bad men in secret. They're good men in public, and that's what matters. And truth be told, we've seen men work their way around being trifling publicly. Can I get an amen, somebody? Especially when they're in church. My father wasn't held accountable for being an unwed parent like my mother was. And throughout the years, he was active in congregations. He was deeply beloved. As a member of the choir, he led songs, and people looked to him with great respect. It didn't matter that his role in my life was non-existent. There was no accountability for him. Is there ever? How are we supposed to then account for men who are absent fathers and all around terrible guys and yet still seem to find folks to tell them it's okay? The people they hurt will understand how social and structural pressures caused them to make the decisions they did. How are women then supposed to react when they see men who've hurt them finally get it together? Ooh. Ooh. Y'all know I gotta pause and just take some water on this. Huh. Woo. How are women supposed to react when they see men who've hurt them finally get it together and be told it's the responsibility of the people they hurt to let it go and see them for who they are now and not who they used to be? Can we park right there? Park right there. Park right there to talk about how we participate in this. Park, let me read it again for our clarity. How are women supposed to react when they see men who've hurt them finally get it together and be told it's the responsibility of the people they hurt to let it go and see them for who they are now and not what they used to be? My response, Candace writes, membership has its privileges. For years, I refused the term daddyless daughter. I'm actually not one. I have a dad. He's just trifling. And his refusal to actively parent me manifested itself in me in ways that will probably take a lifetime to overcome. It would be years before I understood that the shame I associated with being my mother's daughter was actually rooted in the sorrow of not being my father's daughter. I believe it is the parent's responsibility to ensure their child is healthy, whole, and able to thrive. For some, giving their children up for adoption so they could be raised by others who could give them a safe and better life, or sending their children back to the spirit realm through abortion because they weren't ready to parent, are the best ways to live into that parental responsibility. But that's not the decision my father made, and no number of explanations or excuses will justify his or any parent's willful neglect. And the trauma has a ripple effect across other relationships. Because my father is a piss poor dad, my brothers and I are essentially strangers. Despite our now being adults who can choose to have relationships with each other apart from my father, it's still quite difficult. I'm going to skip over to 37. When it comes to my relationship with my father, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, let it go. Let it go. Letting go without accountability is somehow proof of healing. Remember we talked about that last week, like this forgiveness without accountability or proof of accountability of healing. I've been told to accept my father for who he is, even if it means I must shoulder the responsibility of initiating and sustaining our relationship on my own. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Digi Deacon Natasha and Dr. Irie. Thank you so much. Thank you for posting on YouTube. Thank you. I've been told to accept my father for who he is, even if it means, this is the part that's getting me right now. I know this story. I know this story. I know this story. I know this story so well. Candace, if you are out there watching and or listening, it was as if you unzipped me and jumped into my mind and started writing. I know this story. I know that you are writing from a millennial's perspective, but I just want to let you know that when the truth transcends generations. The truth transcends generational codes. So Gen X, baby boomer, millennial, Gen Z, the truth transcends all of those monikers. I know this so intimately and have struggled. I remember being in seminary in Mary Elizabeth, why did her last name just leave me? But and for those of you who know Mary Elizabeth, you know of whom I'm speaking. But being in her class, and we were talking about Howard Thurman and the discipline of suffering. And I was just so adamantly against it, and still am, was so adamantly against it because I wanted to know, how come the oppressed, the traumatized always have to be the light for those who are commencing the trauma? Like, why is it that I have to initiate and sustain? And why is it that folk like to tell you, well, because you're the one who knows, like, so you just go ahead and just forget. Friend, that's harmful ideology. Thank you, Monica, Mary Elizabeth Moore. Thank you. It's harmful ideology. It is harmful theology. It takes away one's agency. It makes one question how vulnerable they can be. It takes the onus off of the harming party and places all of the onus on the party who is most vulnerable. Listen, it is extremely tragic and problematic, and as a result, listen, this applies to all folks, right? And there is a way in which that as a result, whether you are a son who's seeking that same relationship with a parent, and in this case we're talking about dads, that need to initiate and sustain stays with you in other kinds of relationships. Yeah, and then you become resentful. Yeah, child. Woo, because it'll follow you into other intimate and professional relationships, where you will find yourself always doing the initiating and sustaining. And then when you are not receiving reciprocity, giving back what has been given to you, or receiving what you have given, then you will grow resentment, Ashe, and you will really not be able to point to where that resentment is coming from unless you do that deep soul excavation, excavate the soul, that deep kind of soul archaeological dig, if you will, to drill down to why this bothers you so. And I guarantee when you drill down further enough, it is going to lead you right back to this space. It's going to lead you right back to this particular relationship. But that advice, Candace writes, doesn't honor the truth of my experience, of what I've wanted and needed in a dad. At 9, I knew I deserved a father who put forth the effort to be my father. 30 years later, I still know that in part, ungendering God also freed me from the idea God has favorites, and my dad was one of them. God loves my father without a doubt. And God is disappointed in my father and other absent parents for abandoning their children and responsibilities. I needed to understand that. It mattered significantly to me. There are progressive theologies which describe God as a woman. And in the beginning, I needed them. I needed to read The Shack and see God portrayed as a black woman. I needed to read womanist theologians like Dolores S. Williams, Jacqueline Grant, M. Sean Copeland, and others who troubled God's gender for me. Their work gave me a framework to expand my understanding of God. Truth be told, if anybody asked me to describe God in human form, I would describe my mama. She gave me life, and she gave me life and saved it 1,000 times over. Nurtured me through correction and compassion. In my life, she is God enfleshed. On some level, I would have always understood God as a woman, as a black woman. I think if we describe God with the human attributes of the person who has cared for us the most in this life, our renderings would look different from the God given to us. Perhaps that's the point. When God wrapped God's self in brown flesh and became Jesus, divinity came in a form no one expected or initially appreciated. Maybe God is to be that personal to us. Christ, who is both God's Son and God's self, challenged the way the people of his time understood what God could look like. We must have the courage to do the same. Even though I needed to see God as a woman to begin healing from the harm of masculine-centered theologies, and I'm going to add a term from Roxanne Mountford in her text, The Gender Pulpit. Not only did she need to see God as a woman to begin healing from masculine-centered theologies, but also masculine rhetorical pulpits. Ashe. I've since shifted away from expressing God through gender altogether. Now you'll see me rocking my I Met God She's Black t-shirt proudly. But I love it because it's true. Black women have been God for me more times than I can count. Plus, I absolutely love how the declaration pisses white people and black men off. Admittedly, I still slip up and have to catch myself when I refer to God with male pronouns. More times than not, it's done with friends to spoof the masculinity-drenched black church. And I've slid in it a few times when I've preached to certain congregations because I understand my audience. But honestly, old habits die hard. For more than 30 years, God was male to me. Certain belief systems don't disappear overnight, no matter how hard I try or how many books I read. With sincere intention in public writing and speech, I refer to God as God because I resist the allure of entangling God in the same bondage I needed God freed from. Back up. I resist the allure of entangling God in the same bondage I needed God freed from. For me, God's love makes the difference. What do I lose when I ungender God? I abandon the notion that there are some who are outside of God's identity and therefore God's love. I lose the claim I stake in believing this is the right and only way to know God. And I grab hold of the reality that the vast conceptions of the human existence can be found within God. This has opened a path for even greater exploration of God's nature that are mindful of queer, trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming folks. Pushing beyond the limits of gender and language construction helps us to discover how expansive God truly is. Moving the concept of God outside of the box it has been in also scares people to the point of believing it's heretical and demonic. I've watched Christians who consider themselves to be LGBT plus, affirming and progressive, absolutely lose it when someone says God is queer. But doesn't such a declaration really just affirm God's desire for a more inclusive and compassionate creation? All humanity exist within God. Who are we without our finite understanding to say how endless those possibilities are? God is God. God created all things, God created all things, exists beyond time, and is eternal. God stood before language or identity and is not defined by them. God is compassionate and empathetic enough to make room for us to come to know God as we need to come to know God. And while I think I gave us an initial point of reference, the push to understand God through gendered language does not come from the divine. Come on, the push to understand God through gendered language does not come from the divine. It comes from our need to control, to lay claim, to create proximity to those whose authority we believe shouldn't be questioned. But domination is not God's will for us. But domination is not God's will for us. My goodness. God pushes and nudges us toward more freeing, liberating ways to see the holy, because when we shift our gaze, we welcome true intimacy and connection, because more than anything, God desires relationship with us. More than anything, God desires relationship with us. While facilitating Oprah Winfrey's life class in 2011, Iyanla Vanzant worked with a young man who could not let go of the animosity he had toward his absent father. Iyanla suggested that instead of focusing on the anger, that the young man should express gratitude because his father lent his body back to God so he could have life. Immediately, I thought of the times my mother told me God had to get me here however God could. Yet I hadn't considered honoring my father's role in the act of creating me. So much of my time had been focused on reeling from the fact that he was not active in the physical realm, that I had not expressed gratitude for what my father did for me in the spiritual realm. And perhaps my mother was right. Maybe there are reasons I will never know or understand which kept and keep my father from being who he's supposed to be to me. My prayer is, while I honor my father's holy offering, he has found a way to offer up his own life for the sake of himself. There is grace. Come on, here is the good news. Y'all better catch this sermon. This is the good news. That there is grace for my father, Candace writes, even if he doesn't take it. And there is grace for me as I navigate my own angst and frustrations. While I doubt we will ever understand each other, God understands us both. This is a beautiful moment right here. The God, my goodness. God understands us both. The God who is real holds my father accountable for his absence in my life, just as God holds me accountable for the ways I have lived contrary to my ethics and integrity. This God isn't creating structures to hold me more responsible for the things I've done because I should have known better. And while creating an exhaustive list of reasons why my dad simply couldn't be the man he was supposed to be, the God who worked with intention and care to bring creation to life has called humanity to be its highest self. This God moves with and is moved by us. The moment we shift from this truth is the moment we are no longer connected to God. Ashe. Whew. Wow. 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 Let me just give room for the silence. Let me just give room for the silence. Somebody want to come on live with me and give us your response and your reaction? Let me know in the chat. Ashe. I'll bring you on. I'll send you a link. You can come on right now. I just have to take a breath, y'all. Right, Kim. You know, for those of you that don't know, I keep water. Water is a necessary element for ritual. Water gives us life. Without it, we could not be sustained. And when I'm reading these texts, I ingest water when something hits me, when I need to be replenished, when I need life restored, I sip water. And so those who who are familiar, they usually have some water next to them that they can cleanse, if you will, as they are moving through. This is let me hear where you are. Let me type where you are so that I can see. Yeah. If you wanna come on, we have some extra time. We've ended a little early this part where we can have some conversation about it, or we can do it right here in your timeline. Let me tell you what hits for me is this last part that I think I'm gonna go ahead and just read again because it was so beautiful. Where is it? Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna find it again. So much of my time had been focused on reeling from the fact that he was not active in the physical realm, that I'd not expressed gratitude for what my father did in the spirit. And perhaps my mother was right. Maybe there are reasons I will never know or understand which kept me and keep my father from being who he is supposed to be to me. My prayer is that while I honor my father's holy offering, that he has found a way to offer up his own life for the sake of himself. There is grace. That's it. There is grace. My goodness. It chokes me up. There is grace for my father, even if he doesn't take it. And there is grace for me as I navigate my own angst and frustrations. Ashe. Ashe. How does that make you feel? Where do you sit in that? Jaslyn says that this chapter choked me up. Well, the whole book did, but really still grappling with being there, light while folks do you harm. That's been burned into my personality. Yeah, I think that which is not what I hear Candace saying. I'm not suggesting you're saying that she's saying that. But I think that that is a this is my calendar letting me know that it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. But it's also my grandmother's birthday tomorrow, so that's what's more important. Thank you. Maybe that wasn't my calendar. Maybe that was my grandmother, so that I can lead in this way. Ashe, Inez. Thank you. Hey. Yes, listen, you really gotta tap in and not just take things as coincidence. I believe that our ancestors make contact by any means necessary, the ways that they can, and it actually is my grandmother's birthday tomorrow. But it is interesting. I believe I know why this tap in comes, because on you. Some of you may know that I had a relative transition. Last week or the week before last, and there was a woman that was tagged. They tagged many of the family to let us know that that our cousin had transitioned, and there was a name on the tag that I was unfamiliar with. And so because I am the self-appointed historian and archivist of my grandmother's, like our immediate family, I reached out to the woman wanting to know, how we're related, so that I could add her to the family tree. Upon which she shared with me that she is my grandmother and my grandmother's brother's baby sister. I was like, what now? Say what? And I was, and so then I had to go back in my mind to see if I remembered hearing about her. Then I started feeling all kind of emotions and feelings started coming up, and a lot of them were thinking about how my grandmother would feel, how my grandmother felt, because this would mean that this person was conceived and loved by my great grandmother's spouse while he was married to my great grandmother. And so I know that as I'm reading this about fathers, it is as if, Monica, I've been reading it in, my grandmother's hearing, that maybe, this is a sign received. Maybe she also hears, right? That there is grace also for her own dad, Ashe. That even as she continues on her healing journey, it is my belief that when our ancestors take flight, that they are, unlike what we hear in our Christian tradition, which says that, the old things pass away, we are healed, we don't need healing anymore, we don't need, I tend to believe that what people may have struggled with on this side, that they still require healing, and our intercessory prayers on the other side is my belief. And so I just can't help but take this as her ashe, if you will, to what we've been reading of her ashe, to what this means for a kind of release. And this release is not absolution. I don't take this as absolution, being absolved from not being present. What I take this actually is resolved, or resolve, as they say in debate, that there is grace, that God, absolutely cares, as Candace says, for her dad. There's grace for him, and there's grace also for her frustrations. Yet this grace is not pushing one into a space of release without forgiveness, without accountability, right? But it is an invitation to release. One can be released without sort of that all-out forgiveness that requires, that doesn't require accountability. And I know some might use forgiveness and release in the same token. I don't, that's not what I'm doing right now. Yeah, I say that's not what I'm doing. Yes, Dr. Monica said, hey, Candace Bimbo, you better be on here. Hey, 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 hey. Sis, we are celebrating you. We are celebrating you. We are celebrating you. And just how you are freeing us. How you are, my grandmother, I believe, just came on from the other side with this notification, reminded me that it's her birthday tomorrow. Because I just want to say that in the midst of my own healing, as Dr. Monica is speaking to, that she is getting her own. Yes, as Dr. Coleman says, that in Ifa, our healing of generational pain heals our ancestors too. Ashe, and there are rituals for that too. Believe it. I absolutely believe it. I absolutely believe it. Just go read a few more of your comments to share. Oh shoot, where'd it go, Teresa Rain? 1 second, y'all. Ashe, hold on. They are, I wish I could, 1 second, because I want us to hear. Dr. Song, I would say to my daughter and grandchildren that God used their biological father to get them here. I never thought about the one that was used to get me here. Ashe. Teresa, when my 13-year-old shared with me that they were non-binary, excuse me. I'm sorry, I just had to burp, Teresa. When my 13-year-old shared with me that they were non-binary, it helped me to resume using neutral terms for God as I continue to wrestle with using they, them instead of her. Come on, Mother Rains. Come on, Mother Rains. Ashe. What was necessary was that my child knew how loved and accepted by God they were. Ashe. Ashe. Yes. Yolanda Seminary teaches us that we should be aware of the context of what we read. All of the sacred texts that have been shared on PRC, these Black women authors are creating context separate from that of antiquity and patriarchy, but a context of the fluid God from a womanist context. All right. Okay. Yeah. Darla, I have a complicated relationship with the father role. I love my adopted father with all his imperfections, but have years of conflicted emotions around my birth father. The idea of grace for all three of us is freeing. Thank you. It will take a while for the healing to be complete, but this word does wonders. Whew, ashe. Furthermore, Teresa Rain continues, I have told my child that her absent father is not their issue, not her fault. My child will never be responsible for an adult who should do his job to maintain his relationship with his child. Ashe. Tanya Denise Anderson. There was a time that I tried intentionally to embrace God as a father because I needed to know that there was a male presence, any male presence that could be as loving toward me as the women in my life. I needed to know that it was possible. Ashe. Darcy, yes, as a white female-bodied human, I pray that my learning is my ancestors' learning as well. Ashe, Darcy, me too. Yvonne Johnson, okay, all right. So, yeah, this is my story. This is my song, Ashe. Donna Otis, my father is a great dad to me. However, I am well aware my dad has an older daughter he never met. I have attempted to locate my sister despite my family telling me to leave it alone. It is Candace's siblings' loss not to be in relationship with her. Dr. Irie, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation or abdication of responsibility. Boom! And there it is for those of you who were wondering. Carmen, I pause to be thankful for my daddy. Who was mostly absent the year before he ascended. My daddy's absence was intertwined with his ascension. Yeah, this text digs down into that pain and reveals this. I'm being healed by grace, extended to me and my father. I'm continually healed as I experience my husband, father, our children. Let me tell, Carmen, that's it. That is it right there for me. Listen. That last sentence. I'm continually healed as I experience my husband, father, our children. So I am blessed to have a bonus dad, as I've heard some of you speak to. And I'm calling him bonus dad for you all. But he is my dad. He's been in my life since I was 3 or 4 years old. I'm 50 now. He has been present. Blood does not connect us, Ashe. But let me tell you, the love, the lineage, and not just with him, with the entire side of that family. I have been present, have been there. We don't use step. That's not my stepdad. That is my dad, period. Do you hear me? That is my father, period. That's it, right? We'll fight you about him. Whom you are hearing me often talk about, though, is my biological father, with whom I have two sisters. So when you hear me talk about my sisters, we each have different moms, but we have the same dad. And his relationship has been tragic. I'm not going to speak on his relationship and either of them. Let me just stick with me to say that what has been healing to me, though, is to see, what has been healing to me is to see how beautifully my husband has parented our daughters. Now, let me also say, for transparency, that my husband also has a son whom he loves dearly, right? But yet there have been some challenges in their relationship. And I would say that his son would say that he has not been present as he ought. I would also say that maybe my husband's son's mom would agree. And why am I saying this? I'm also saying that it's complicated. It's complicated for me as the spouse whose children live in the home, for the ways in which my husband is able to spend time and to have experiences that maybe he and his son have not had the opportunity to have for myriad of reasons. Yet I understand the void that may create, and even with my own biological father, of often always wondering, right? So my point is that there is healing all around, and that also, to Dr. Coleman's point, is that when we all begin to heal ourselves in this way, right, then we heal our ancestral lineage. I needing to heal my own ancestral lineage, when I think about my mother's relationship with her father, and my grandmother and my grandfather were married to two different people when my mother was conceived. So that means that when my mother would come to be with my grandmother, when my mother would go to be with her father, she was with her father in the home of he and his wife, which also brought up so other types of contention, right? It means then also for my grandmother, whom I just told the story about her great grandfather having a child inside the marriage to her mother, but my great grandfather is also not my biological great grandfather, because my great grandmother was sexually violated and thus had my grandmother. So my grandmother has never known her father. What is the point that I'm saying by all of these lineages? The more that I'm able, that we're able, that you're able to be healed, the more that our ancestral lineage heals, Ashe. So the work that I'm doing to as I'm reading Candace's words, the work that I am doing to put the pieces of my own self back together and on this side of time inevitably aids my lineage to put their pieces back together, that we might all be healed, that the generations that would come through my children's line, right, this won't be their story. And for the prayer and the repair work, right, with my spouse's son and he, right, and the entire family, that Candace's story is one story, right? And there are other stories with different types of circumstances around them. Ashe? Looking for a napkin. Hold on. With other kinds of circumstances around them, right? There are other other stories. Ashe. Ashe. Let me. Whew. That felt. Ooh, I feel like I just released. Whew. Ashe. My goodness. Yeah. I just released some stuff. Yeah. Yes, right? Candace says bending time backwards and forward and in the present. Yes. Yes, this is a whew, I just because here's what I know. And Candace girl, I was smiling through this chapter, laughing and being like, yup, that Negro trifling. And then here was the other part, because this is the question I used to ask. My question was, how does someone have a seed in the world and don't know how that seed is functioning? If that seed is growing, if that seed is being nurtured, if that seed is in a safe environment, if that seed is okay, how does that happen? That was my angst for a long time. And then I realized that my mother shared with me, hold on. Then my mother shared with me that your dad knew that you were going to be okay, right? And that he often would say, I know you're going to be fine, to my mother, because my grandmother and others were going to make it so, right? And so, but that's not an excuse. Hold on, y'all. I'm just setting up the clearing. That's not an excuse. Yet at the same time, one second. Let me go back. Hold on, y'all. Let me get the clearing right. Then I want to go back here and see if it'll let me post. Paste. Okay, can't post messages to some channels. All right, there's the Zoom link. Irie, can you post that over to YouTube, please, as well? Thank you so much. Okay, I've learned that men have an uncanny ability to compartmentalize. Yes. So I've put the Zoom link up. It may take a second for you to see it because there's a lag here, but I've placed it there. Also, then Pink Rope Chronicles Zoom in. Hold on. Oh, let me do one more thing, friends, to just get you there. Give me a sec. So y'all know, y'all be like, where the link? I don't see the link. Ashe, okay. I have also posted it here. Okay. All right. So I've just posted it on Zoom. On Facebook. I've posted it on the Pink Robe Chronicles Facebook page. You all should see it. Let me know that you're seeing it so that we can take our conversation. Yes. There's something to be said. Yes. Ashe. Listen, I want to take this conversation because I feel us going. I want to take it, off live and take it over to our Zoom space. So I want to welcome those of you who feel so compelled to come on over. The other thing is I want to invite you to come to the Facebook page of Abyssinian Baptist Church, Memphis, Tennessee, which is pastored by the Reverend Dr. Earl Fisher. at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So that's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I am the guest preacher following after Reverend Dr. Weems, who preached last week. Reverend Starsky Wilson will preach the following Sunday, and then Reverend Dr. Heber Brown will bring up the rear as the anchor on the last Sunday. I want to invite you to come on over. I know that there is a word from the Lord. It was a beautiful time getting that message together. So I want to invite you to get into the virtual church van and come with us. Go grab your breakfast and come with us on over to Abyssinian. I don't know, Natasha, if or Ivory, whichever one of you are able to grab that Facebook link. And the Zoom is, yes, immediately. Soon as I end this, some of you are probably waiting in the waiting room right now, but soon as I end this, the Zoom, I'll let you into the Zoom room. The link for the Facebook page for Abyssinian, you would put that on here. Shay, thank you. Just a second, if you're in the waiting room for the Zoom, just be patient. I'm coming. Let me close up here what I need to close up here. Ashe, thank you for giving to Pink Robe Chronicles, to our PayPal. Thank you, excuse me, for giving also for those of you who share to our Venmo. We are appreciative for those of you who use Zelle. Thank you for getting Abyssinia. For those of you who use Zelle, Dr. Melva Sampson at gmail.com is the Zelle information to connect with me. I see you, Natasha. I see all of you all. Thank you so very much. Again, I welcome you on over to the Zoom space. By now, all of the links and everything should be there and should be up. It has been so good to be with you, both Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Thank you, the Zoom again. Malika, look on my it's in, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, Facebook, go to my timeline into the link. Or if somebody can make sure, oh, can I respond? Am I able to respond to? No, I can't. Okay. I don't want to do that. I wasn't trying to block anybody. Okay. All right, they got it to you. Thank you, Malika. All right, y'all. Next week, part 3, Red Lip Theology. Candace Bimbo, we love you, girl. Thank you. All right.